rights grounds, and an end to the fighting, not only to deliver urgently needed food and water, but to create the path, the space for a path out of this horror. Finally, it is clear that the Israeli occupation must end. It is essential to ensure the rights of Palestinians to self-determination and to their own state. And it is essential to acknowledge that Israel has a right to exist.
Volker Turk, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, speaking. A few other developments that have come out. So as of right now, communication in the entire Gaza Strip is down once again. The reports are that the companies in charge of, just setting up the network systems, they've run out of fuel to power their generators, which continues to speak to something that had been essentially projected from weeks before now. This is part of why establishments in the Gaza Strip have been calling for fuel to be allowed in. It's the same reason why the UN and other agencies have been doing the same thing. In fact, UN organizations have said that their work within the enclave has been essentially hampered by this particular issue. As of right now, on the Israeli side, there's a politics that's at play where the opposition party is saying that it's time for the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, to be replaced. So very much you see how the politics is playing out as Israel continues its bombardment of Gaza. Besides this, Israel has also ordered for evacuation out of parts of southern Gaza, which is a problem because in the initial they had given more than 1 million people 24 hours to evacuate the north and told them to go down to the south. And now they're talking about evacuating parts of the south, which continues to raise concerns around an expansion of the war, right? And despite its ground invasion of Gaza, which has been on for a couple of weeks now, there hasn't been any significant progress from the Israeli side to say that, look, we have actually fully stamped out Hamas, as they've said, which is their objective. So this is something that continues to unfold and continues to draw concern across the board. Elsewhere, on Now Global this morning, I bring you a report from Al Jazeera. It reads, the Turkish Parliament's Foreign Affairs Commission has delayed a vote on Sweden's NATO membership bid in a further setback to the Nordic country's hopes of joining the Western Alliance after 18 months of waiting. Chairman Fuat Oktay said the Commission will hold further talks and may bring the bill back on its agenda next week, but he did not set a clear timeline. The Commission, which is controlled by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, can pass bills by a simple majority. It may invite the Swedish ambassador to brief lawmakers if needed and if Parliament's regulations allow this, according to Mr. Oktay. President Erdogan said this month that he would try to facilitate the ratification process, but added that Sweden had not taken enough action on Kurdish armed groups. And this takes us to one of the ripple effects of the Russian war in Ukraine. And just to take you backtrack to the beginning, after Russia invaded Ukraine, you had countries like Sweden and Finland essentially abandoned decades of non-alliance to join the NATO, that's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Finland got its own membership bid ratified by the Turkish parliament. This was months ago. With Sweden, Turkey has demanded that Sweden needs to take greater action against a group that Turkey has branded as a terror group, where there are quite a number of its members that are taking refuge in Sweden. Now, the Swedish government has actually passed an anti-terror bill that criminalizes membership of a terror organization. They've also relaxed regulations that would allow them to actually export arms to Turkey. They've essentially been doing everything that they can to court the Turkish favor, because NATO members must all agree unanimously to allow any other person or country rather to join its membership. The expectations are that it will still go through regardless of the conversations in the Turkish parliament at the moment. But even when Sweden, if and when Sweden eventually scales the Turkish war, they also have the Hungarian war to deal with. Hungary is also pushing back against their membership bid. These are the conversations on Now Global this morning. Stick around, we've got the news coming up next.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Across Nigeria, Africa, and the world, this is Radio Now News.
The Lagos State government says the partially collapsed building at Oloto Street, Borno Way in Ebutemeta had been designated as distressed and marked for demolition before its eventual collapse. Speaking yesterday during an inspection of the old two-story structure, the Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development, Oluyinka Olumide, said the building had been marked by the Lagos State Building Control Agency during its routine monitoring earlier in the month. In a statement which was issued by the ministry spokesperson yesterday, Mr. Olumide sympathized with those affected by the collapse. He said the agency had served statutory notices, including a quit notice and a seal order. It had initiated the process to effect the removal of the building. He described as disheartening the fact that occupants of the building had refused to heed the notice as issued by the Building Control Agency to avert danger. He directed the agency to immediately demolish the structure and urged residents of the state to always heed government notices and vacate any distressed building to protect lives and property. A court of appeal sitting in Abuja has voided the election of Governor Dauda Lawal of Zamfara State. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) had declared Governor Lawal the winner of the March 18th governorship exercise. However, Bello Matawalle of the All Progressives Congress and the immediate past former governor challenged the victory of Governor Lawal, who ran under the platform of the People's Democratic Party. The tribunal had upheld Governor Lawal's election. However, Mr. Matawalle, who is now Minister of State for Defence, approached the appeal court. Yesterday, a three-member panel of the justices annulled the victory of Governor Lawal and ordered a rerun of the election in three local government areas: Maradun, Birnin Magaji and Bukuyun. Elsewhere in the news, the Ondo State Security Network Agency, also known as Amotekun Corps, has arrested no fewer than 55 people who were allegedly involved in various criminal activities across the state. The suspects were paraded at the headquarters of the Corps in Akure, the state capital, yesterday. The state commander of the Corps, Adetunji Adeleye, said the suspects were arrested at different locations across Ondo. According to him, they had allegedly committed offences such as arson, stealing, kidnapping and robbery, amongst others. He added that the Corps has commenced a 24-hour operation and patrol in a bid to ensure the Yuletide is crime-free. Still in the news, the coalition of United Political Parties (CUP) has commended the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) over the just concluded off-cycle elections in Bayelsa, Imo and Kogi states, in spite of overwhelming challenges that the commission had to cope with during the polls. The coalition had said, as the foremost opposition group in the country, it was pertinent for it to give kudos to the umpire in situations where it deserved so, just as the coalition had knocked it for lapses in the past. It said from the reports of different observer groups and non-governmental organizations working with CUP across the three states, the conduct and outcome of the election appeared to have been best in Kogi State. And that's the news at 7 here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. You can listen online from anywhere in the world at www.thisisradionow.com. Simply click on the Listen Live button and you can take us with you wherever you go. Connect with us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/thisisradionow and on all other platforms at Radio Now 953 FM. Share your thoughts and opinions with us on WhatsApp to the WhatsApp line 080968222595. I am Nabila Osman. Thank you for listening. Now breakfast continues shortly. Do stay tuned.
This is Radio Now News.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Nah, man. This subsidy removal, nah, shege.
You're right. The price of sanitary pads have gone up.
Do you only need women to dance behind you at political rallies? Many women cannot afford to buy sanitary pads when they are on their monthly periods. Our girls in school call one way.
Many girls can no longer afford the important item for their menstrual hygiene.
Politicians suppose reason am o.
This talk about sanitary pad is becoming a recurring matter. Don't worry. You, the women, will be part of the team to suggest how we can address the matter well.
My Period, My Pride radio drama. Now for we politicians to provide free pads for our girls for secondary school. My Period, My Pride. The story of Ife. Now sanitary pad media campaign power up with support from MacArthur Foundation
and Radio Now 95.3 FM. Coming to you every Saturday at 10 a.m.
Watch out.
Dream Africa is offering the opportunity to dream, is valuing the talents of our continent and supporting its development.
Dream Africa is spreading its authenticity, encouraging its passions, and the pursuit of its ambitions around the world.
Meet Morocco is embodying the best of Morocco and revealing the country's hospitality and openness to the world.
Meet Morocco is taking advantage of an ideal location that connects Africa to the world.
Dream Africa, Meet Morocco is Royal Air Morocco's new commitment to put our country and our continent on the path of progress.
Royal Air Maroc, Dream Africa, Meet Morocco.
Every Saturday on Radio Now 95.3 FM, listen and win awesome prizes on the My Period, My Pride radio drama giveaway. You could be the lucky winner for the week. To participate, simply listen to My Period, My Pride radio drama every Saturday at 10 a.m. and stand a chance to win by answering the questions correctly. Send your correct answers to our WhatsApp number 0809 682 2595. That is 0809 682 2595 with the hashtag My Period, My Pride. Be the winner on My Period, My Pride radio drama giveaway. Again, it's Saturday 10 a.m. on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos.
Stay tuned to your Beyond the News station daily for our up-to-the-minute compact news bulletins from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., bringing you a wide range of local and international news from our news desk. Stay informed, stay updated on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
You're listening to Now Breakfast. Good morning. This is your daily security watch on Now Breakfast.
On Security Watch this morning, the Lagos Sector Command of the Federal Road Safety Corps, FRSC, says 128 people lost their lives in 376 road traffic crashes recorded between January and October this year. Sector Commander Babatunde Farinloye said this yesterday at a news conference marking World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims. He added that over 1,800 people and more than 600 vehicles were involved in crashes during the period, with probable causes identified as excessive speed, dangerous driving and overloading. He pledged that the command will continue to deploy all paraphernalia of enforcement and advance and advocacy to stem the rate and spate of crashes on roads. And still on Security Watch, the National Security Advisor NSA Nuhu Ribadu says insecurity has reduced since President Bola Tinubu assumed office in May. The NSA said this at the 19th Annual Nigerian Editors Conference in Akwa Ibom. He noted that militancy in the Niger Delta and insecurity in the southeast had reduced and would get better. The NSA also said the federal government will continue to do everything possible to improve the welfare of citizens and remain transparent in government. And that's Security Watch this morning, but stay with us, there are more conversations on the way.
Good morning. This is your daily Security Watch on Now Breakfast.
Stay tuned to your Beyond the News station daily for our up-to-the-minute compact news bulletins from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., bringing you a wide range of local and international news from our news desk. Stay informed, stay updated on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
This is Now Breakfast.
From the north to the south, real people.
So like I said to you, it's some serious elements of the outdone and official of my party whose tenure elapsed, who are pleading with me to endorse an illegal extension, and I refuse to be a part of any illegality.
Real stories every morning.
Most of the IDPs, they stay in schools, and once they move in schools, when there is a disaster, the school in that area is automatically shut down.
This is Today in the News on Now Breakfast.
The government has reduced the 20-count charge bordering on procurement fraud against former Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele. The new charges still border on procurement fraud, but now stand at 6 in number, with Mr. Emefiele as the sole defendant in the case. The value of the procurement fraud has also been reduced from 6.9 billion to 1.2 billion naira. This morning, Charles Adekunle, a legal practitioner, joins us to get into the nitty-gritty of this latest development. Good morning, Mr. Adekunle. Welcome to the conversation.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Let's start off with, does it come as a surprise to you that they've reviewed the charges?
Well, I would say that I'm not particularly surprised. It is in the usual conduct of EFCC to do that. In several instances, we've seen situations where they've either reduced or even totally withdrawn charges against the defendants like this. So I don't think I'm surprised at all. Maybe it is a progress in their investigation. There have been some development, likely, and that has led to the reduction of the procurement charges.
Mm-hmm. Can you speak to us on what the usual considerations, what you would typically see authorities consider in a case like this?
Okay, I think majorly the issue is about, investigation and what you can prove. It is very alarming that sometimes, and I say this, with all consideration, the EFCC actually rushed to court and just put up charges. It's not about the number of charges that you have against somebody. It's about what you have evidence to prove. So it is not by having a 50-count charge. It's not by having 100-count charge. It's, do you have the evidence to actually sustain this charge against this person? Do you have the witnesses? Do you have the documentations? So I'm not surprised that maybe during the course of their investigation, they are unable to prove some of them, and now they've reduced the charges to the one that they are probably sure that they can actually establish before the court. And also the fact that the defendants have been reduced from 2 to 1, and we also not rule out a case of plea bargaining. Maybe the other defendant had entered into a plea bargain with the authorities. Maybe the other defendant is now ready to testify. Of course, these are speculative. I'm not part of the EFCC investigation team, and until they come to the court, and actually, when we see the developments going on there, we cannot rule out anything. But looking at the handwritings on the wall, from 20 charges to 6, from 2 defendants to 1, I just think most likely that there's been a development in the investigations, and now they've narrowed down maybe to the one they can successfully establish against the former central bank governor.
So, this is a high-profile case. There's a number of Nigerians who are interested in the outcome. And, one would have thought that considering he was first arrested by the DSS and was in their custody for quite some time, one would have thought that the EFCC would have somewhat perfected its case against the former CBN governor, and I say that cautiously. I'm simply asking if that's a reasonable expectation to have of the EFCC.
Of course. Over the years, we've said it over and over again. It is not by rushing to court. It is not by, putting up charges. The other day, we all witnessed how the EFCC went to Ile-Ife and wrapped up, university students, a whole lot of them, and, arraigned, and after barely 24 or 48 hours, released almost more than 80% of them. You understand? So it begs the question, what were you doing? What was your intelligence? How did you carry out your investigation? Was there due diligence? It's not by just going out on the street, picking people up, putting up charges against them. It's an issue of how diligent have you been in your investigation. You shouldn't be rushing to court, preferring charges against people when you've not assessed the situation, when you've not considered the evidence that you have. Well, we don't know the inner workings of the investigation team, but it is, somehow that today there's 20 charges, tomorrow there's 6 charges. We don't know. Maybe before the end of the trial, the charges might be reduced to 2. Or even withdrawn totally. A whole lot can happen within the during the prosecution. But every Nigerian should have reasonable expectation that when the anti-graft agencies go out to carry out their responsibility, they've done their homework. It's not a case of blowing hot today and blowing cold tomorrow. So I think it is a very legitimate expectation from the citizens that the anti-graft agencies have actually carried out their investigation. Before you come out against somebody in such a high-profile case, you should at least know what you are doing, and we should give you that benefit of doubt.
And just before we leave this conversation, I mean, the EFCC has a reputation for botching its cases in court. So essentially, we have spent resources and time for the EFCC to investigate an individual. You come to the court case and they have messed up some legal provision or the other, or some evidence matter or the other. In this case, the hope is that it won't happen. What should we look out for in terms of ensuring that the EFCC is actually on top of its game?
Okay, I think that is why I'm particularly comfortable with the fact that the charges have been reduced from, 20 to 6, because if they are 20 and you are unable to prove them, basically that would be botching the case. So if it is only one count that they can sustain, if it is only one count that they've thoroughly investigated, that they have witnesses that can establish, that they have documentations they can use in proving Mr. Emefiele's culpability, then go ahead with that. It is not, how high sounding the charges are. It is not about, making front page of the newspapers. It is about evidence. Because at the end of the day, you might, try the person in a court of public opinion. That will not lead to a conviction. It is what you're able to establish before the court of law. So I think all Nigerians should be, watchful. Everybody should pay attention to exactly what is going on. And we should always call on the EFCC to do their homework. That should put them on their toes and let them know that Nigerians are watching. This is a very high-profile matter. That I'm very sure there are so many vested interests. The ordinary citizenry want to see, what will come out of it. And the end goal should be justice. It should not be persecution. It should be proper prosecution and ensure fair hearing. That is what everybody should be looking out for.
Mr. Adekunle, thank you so much for breaking this down for us, on sharing your thoughts on the matter. We appreciate your time. Mr. Charles Adekunle is a legal practitioner joining us to discuss the the EFCC's reviewing of charges against former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele. There was an initial 20-count charge against him that has been brought down to 6, bordering on procurement fraud. The value of that fraud has also been reviewed downwards from 6.9 billion to 1.2 billion naira. Besides this, the latest development also stands at Mr. Emefiele being the sole defendant in the case. The EFCC has dropped his former co-defendant, Sa'adatu Yaro, who was a former employee of the CBN. In a few minutes, Entertainment Now comes your way here on Now Breakfast.
Every second and every minute, something new happens. The news brings.
And angry mob decided to bomb.
Everyone wants to share it, but not everyone wants to dig deep. Now that's where we come in. We bring you the news and go beyond with in-depth conversations and analysis with stakeholders.
I honestly think that the federal government on its own part has broken.
If voters or more people want to be part of that decision-making process, they need to be part.
GDP is not a good measure of development anyways. We are not there. We need to counter the narrative of the fact that our vote does not count. If your vote does not count.
We bring you the story within the story, and that's what makes us tick. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, and we go beyond the news.
This is Now Breakfast.
This is lifestyle. This is music. This is the movies. This is art. These are the stars behind the culture. This is Entertainment Now on Now Breakfast.
For all lovers of books, art, poetry, culture, and the Afrocentric meaning of life, the Ake Art and Book Festival is back once again. For 3 days, all sorts of literary minds will gather from across Nigeria, Africa, and every corner of the world beyond the shores of the motherland in celebration of this year's theme, Blood Ties, which explores the complexities of family, relationships, loss, and togetherness. And just to give you a sense, right, of what Ake is about, here's last year's, a mashup of what last year presented, right? This is mostly just about the performances.
I hold my body, the drowning ship, and let it submerge in the water. Then I come back up for air.
And as a child, I descend to a world who prays for magical powers. They riddle their tongues, soft in their wishes, intentional in their curses.
The ruler of worlds calls it poetry. Says each page will guard my heart like a rib cage. Each piece would be a master's piece, to be ripped out of me and held up for the world to see that I am a kind of Adam.
Àlàárí laṣọ bàbá tí àìwò lọ́mọ Yorùbá fi ń ṣẹ̀ṣọ́ rìn.
That was a glimpse, a little listen, a sneak, just a tiny bit of what last year's Ake Festival was all about, right? And if you want to ask me why it seemed like there were more female voices than male, unfortunately, I don't have the answer. Thankfully, we've got Ake's festival director, Lola Shone, on the line. Ms. Shone is more than just a lover of the arts, but also the author of Baba Shegi's Wives. Good morning and welcome to the conversation.
Good morning. Hi, Nabila. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on. So should I ask you the question, why were there more female voices than male voices? Yeah. Okay, you know what? I'm going to let you slide on that one, just so we don't start a male versus female war this morning. But
well, there is an answer, and it's quite a simple one.
Yeah.
And the truth is that there are probably...
Hello?
A lot more women writing on the African continent and beyond, especially when it's people of African descent. We're amazing storytellers, and for some reason, the stories that are told by women seem to really resonate, which is not surprising, because women are expressive, they're incredibly creative. They're very focused. They love their sustained writing, and given the interesting lives that we lead, we've also got the stories, we've got the law. So, I think that's it.
I think at this point it's important that the men come and defend themselves, but probably at a later time. I want to bring you to this year's theme, right? Blood Ties. This is the 11th edition of Ake. You've been doing it for quite some time now. What's different? What's the expectation for this year?
Well, this year we have fewer writers, poets, filmmakers that we've ever had. And that's just us responding to the current situation in the world, to be honest, where everything is so much more expensive. But what we've done is to have a wonderful, wonderful program. That's what we've curated, where we have some of the finest writers from around the continent, but also, in the world today. We've got people like Ayana Lloyd Banwo, who are coming in from Trinidad. We've got writers like Bisia Japan. We've got the incredible Bettina Gappa from Zimbabwe. I mean, it's a very long list, despite the fact that I'm saying that it's short. So we've put together a program that's really rich and very intense. And we always say that Ake Festival is 3 days of cultural immersion. And that's what people are going to get. It's panel discussions, book chats, a concert, it's poetry, it's film. We've got the director, producer of Jagu Jagu coming. And also we're doing something new, which is the big African book quiz. We've decided to throw in a competition into the mix this year. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
The way you approach the African literary space in many ways is new territory, right? Of course, this is a space that was thriving for decades before things like Ake came on board, but we can't help but note that things like Ake, festivals like Ake, are still relatively new when you compare, for instance, to festivals in the United Kingdom that are pulling 20, 50 and I don't know how many more dozens of years under their belt. What's that like, sort of just defining the message of Africa's literary space?
I mean, I find it's challenging, but I find it really gratifying. It's amazing, the work that we've been able to do in 11 years with Ake Festival. And it's not just Ake Festival. We also organize Kaba Fest, the festival in Kaduna. And the truth is, everywhere that I have gone, everywhere that I have lived, from Ibadan to Abuja, especially in Nigeria, I have always sort of planted a seed to start some sort of literary or cultural event that takes place at regular intervals. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I'm a writer myself, and I have a sense of the sort of spaces and the sort of events that I would like to do. But I also spent many years being a school teacher, rising to the post of deputy principal, and my focus was always the pastoral. And I guess with that comes this idea of wanting to engage people, wanting to, I suppose, entertain, and make sure it's kind of wholesome entertainment, the kind of stuff that you want people to leave feeling like they had an experience. So I bring a lot of that to the organization of the festival. And most importantly, I just want everybody who comes to the festival to leave believing that they are smarter. So the conversations and the level of the sort of the level of discourse is quite high, and I think that's what people need. We need to remember how to listen, how to sort of engage with big ideas, and throw it in the mix and see how where it sits with us, and to be able to reflect later. That's the kind of experience we want to give people.
So speaking on that experience, I want to play something very briefly. Last year's Ake featured, the headliner was 2021 Nobel Prize for Literature laureate Abdulrazak Gurnah, Tanzanian British writer. And this was the question. He was responding to a question on why refugees center very heavily in his writing. I just want to play that quickly and we come back to this.
I don't think it's anything more complicated than that. Of course, the fact that I have a brief kind of knowledge, which is not as intense and as horrible as some of those that we hear about, but I do have a sense of that kind of experience of losing home, although not permanently, not as permanent as I thought, but there's that experience. And there is the other sense of living, as I've said, living among strangers. But in addition to that, I think there is a kind of there is a human obligation involved here as well in understanding that when people are in those sorts of difficulties and problems, let's say, for example, you think of the Syrians, the Iraqis, Kurdish people who are escaping the destruction of their homes, whose lives are at risk, then I think there is an obligation to be hospitable. So it seems an injustice in that sense to criminalize these people and their desire for safety instead of doing what is possible to do.
Abdulrazak Gurnah, the 2021 Nobel Prize for Literature laureate, speaking on his view of refugees, but also speaking from a personal perspective where he was essentially displaced for a moment and then found himself in the United Kingdom where he was amongst strangers. And Ms. Jonah, I want to tie this to this year's theme of blood ties. I can't help but think that it's in a way about I know last year was homecoming, but in a way it's about a return. It's that how we can't sever the connection to, quote, the motherland. I'd like you to just, speak on that a little more as we wrap up.
Well, this year, Blood Ties, we're focusing on the theme of what is it that constitutes family? What is it that when we think of the blood ties or the bonds that we have that are meaningful, is it always family? Or sometimes is it people that we meet and we form bonds with, but based on friendship and understanding? And I think this is such an important theme and an important topic, just evaluating some of these ideas around the relationships we have. And of course, sometimes, even when we are talking about family, those relationships can be very complicated and very complex. So it's every year we try to have a theme, as you've said, which allows us to kind of really expand and think through some of the ideas that we have around a certain topic. And this time it's blood ties. And I think it's really exciting. In Nigeria, people are always saying blood is thicker than water. I guess it's not just Nigeria, but everywhere. So, but is it? Is it really? So these are some of the ideas that we're going to talk about, and we're very excited about the authors that we have that are going to address some of these questions.
I'll say this much. I am wishing you the best of luck this year. And if you are looking for the answer to the question, is blood thicker than water, then you should attend this year's Ake Arts and Book Festival, holding from the this is from the 22nd to the 23rd.
The 23rd
to
the 25th.
23rd to the 25th.
Is dedicated to workshops. So that's not really open to the public. It's open to people who have pre-registered and are attending a different event. And it's at 51 Shobo Arobiodu Street in GRA at a hotel called the Bon Hotel Ikeja Residence. It's very central, it's very beautiful, it's got a lovely pool, it's got lovely spaces. Yeah, so we're very excited about next week.
Fantastic. I'm wishing you again just the best of luck as you do the 11th Ake Arts and Book Festival. Our guest, Lola Shone, is festival director, lover of the arts, and author of Baba Shegi's Wives. Stick around. In a bit on Now Breakfast, News Extra returns where we talk about investment in the telecommunications sector. I'm Nabila Usman. This is Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Babes, now how much be sanitary pad for your area?
Now play we been dey play before. Everybody wey dey this place wey be human being na party dey buy take do period. She go bring her wrapper, cut all her wrapper wey she get. They use dey do period. Which kind of nonsense be this?
Ijoma,
see what you are saying to your fellow woman who is in need. ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn ti pọ̀ jù.
Na so they use clothes now. Abi we no go chop first.
Auntie Joma, what did my mommy ever do to you? It's not fair.
Now, if a story be this, My Period, My Pride radio drama, Season 1. Now, Sanitary Pad Media Campaign Power Up with support from MacArthur Foundation
and Radio Now 95.3 FM every Saturday at 10 a.m.
The Financial Services Regulation Coordinating Committee, FSRCC, in collaboration with the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, wishes to draw the attention of the public to the activities of illegal financial operators, IFOs, which threaten public trust and the stability of the Nigerian financial system. The general public is hereby advised to refrain from dealing with unlicensed financial operators who deceive individuals with unrealistically high investment returns. Verify the licensing status of such schemes on this website: www.cbn.gov.ng, www.nicom.gov.ng, www.pencom.gov.ng, www.sec.gov.ng. To report any suspicions of illicit financial activities, call 0700 225 5226, 0800 225 5226, or +234 817 665 6273. Announcer, FSRCC.
Dream Africa is offering the opportunity to dream, is valuing the talents of our continent and supporting its development.
Dream Africa is spreading its authenticity, encouraging its passions, and the pursuit of its ambitions around the world.
Meet Morocco is embodying the best of Morocco and revealing the country's hospitality and openness to the world.
Meet Morocco is taking advantage of an ideal location that connects Africa to the world.
Dream Africa, Meet Morocco is Royal Air Morocco's new commitment to put our country and our continent on the path of progress.
Royal Air Maroc, Dream Africa, Meet Morocco.
Be a part of our online community on Facebook. Like our page on www.facebook.com/This Is Radio Now to join every conversation on air and get up-to-date news information on the go.
This is Now Breakfast.
For every news story, there's more.
So we can write the best security architecture plan, but it remains an essay until it becomes manifest on ground.
More detail.
Every time you are doing reform, even when we were doing it 2006, 2007, the question is also that it's not the right time. When will be the right time?
More than just the headline. This is News Extra on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
Nigeria's telecommunications sector has been one of the stars of any past government's privatization effort. For context, telcos had contributed 12.46% to our gross domestic product as of the second quarter of this year. The sector's ability to stand on its own and chart new pathways gives us hope that not everything will end up like the struggling power sector. Now, this is part of why news of a drop in investments this year was met with more than a furrowed brow. Nigeria Bureau of Statistics report says telcos experienced a 77.35% drop in foreign investments in the first half of 2023. To get into more of this, we're joined by Joseph Olaoluwa, who's a senior reporter at Tech Cabal. Good morning, Mr. Olaoluwa. Welcome to the conversation.
Good morning, everyone.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Just based on what's going on within the sector and the economy across the board, is it a surprise that we've seen this sort of drop in foreign investments?
To be honest, it's not surprising. There are a lot of factors that have led to this. And some of them are actually like things that we talk about on a daily basis. Why foreign investments are dwindling is because the investors know the macroeconomic situation of Nigeria, and it is sometimes, to say the hard truth, it's not looking like the best time to actually like bring those money in, and that's probably the reason why today on the stock exchange there are more domestic investors than foreign investors. there are not so many foreign companies that have stayed through the course of this year already in the economy, and some of that are due to the fact that inflation just increased this week to 27% from 26%. The interest rates, the meeting that we're meant to have from the CBN to determine whether they will raise the interest rate or not, has not been had and was postponed for the first time in 8 years. We never had a postponement of interest rate meetings before. So it doesn't exactly look like after the first reform that the president did, which was remove subsidy and float the naira, it didn't look like there's any other thing that the government had in store to actually drive investments in.
Yeah, follow-up of sorts, essentially. Has this ever happened for the telco sector?
Well, what is happening in the telco sector is reflective of what's happening in the economy. We cannot take away that fact because we have tech investors, we have telecom investors, we have people that are investing in other parts of the economy, and the story is still the same, that the growth has not been exactly there. So some context.
Hello, Mr. Laulu. Hello, Mr. Laulu, can you hear me? Mr. Laulu, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Apologies. We lost the conversation when you said for context.
I say for context, if you look at the MBS report, the Foreign Portfolio Investment Report, in Q4 2022, which is like last year, fourth quarter, we had $1 million investments in. But compared to Q4 2021, we had $2 million in based on the MBS data. So it does show that it's been declining year on year. So now that we're meant to have in Q2 2023, which is the last MBS report, we're meant to have $1.5 million. But what we had is $1.1 million, just $1 million, which is so the investments are kind of been declining year on year, showing
this brings me to questions around local investments, and kind of like you said, it's not just about what's happening out there. Even here, Nigerians are feeling the crunch as well as businesses. What's that looking like, local investment in the telecoms sector?
Well, let us use the examples that we have for context. We have MTN and we have Airtel that we use. Here, Airtel is partly not Nigerian in a way, and MTN is kind of one of our local homegrown services, right? Both of them released their 9-month reports, I think around this month or so, and both of them cited that inflation, foreign exchange, and macroeconomic conditions have been affecting their revenue and they are affecting their profitability. So they've been making revenues, right? But they've been having issues with profitability. And one of the reasons why probably MTN has increased the data costs, which they might not say publicly, is because their base stations run on diesel, and diesel has also increased prices significantly this year. And so for local investors as well, some of the things that they will need to run. So I'm running a base station in Nigeria here. As a local investor, I need to factor in the cost of my diesel into the fact that I'm providing data and network services, and maybe even mobile money services, right? And one of the things that local investors need to survive some of these economic situations, they need it to be okay for them to invest. And so it doesn't look like on the local level it's changing. It doesn't look like on the foreign level it's changing. So it's really like a very tight situation for both investors who are looking to work. Really, what they need is a government support to help businesses thrive, which is exactly not there. Even if the economic situation might not be favorable for not only for Nigeria but maybe across the world, what will be needed is government support, which is sometimes not seemingly there.
I mean, on the matter of government support here, one of the things I know the companies have tried to push for is an increase in their tariffs. And you've just mentioned that some, I won't re-mention, but some of them have increased their data costs. And the NCC seems to be reluctant to allow them do this, all the way up to the federal government because of increases in daily living for Nigerians across the board. How much longer do you think the companies can hold out for?
Well, to be fair, I don't even think that the companies are actually waiting on hold. I mean, I use a 4G Wi-Fi and the prices have changed. So I think they have to actually increase their costs to maintain the service. If you look at some of the data from some of these companies on the exchange, whether it's the big telcos that we use, and sometimes we talk about them, they are making revenue probably close to billions, but they're not making. But their profit has reduced significantly, and all of this shows that there's a lot of there's a lot of capex spending. There's so many expenditures going into keeping the network running, and something has to actually give at some point. So it's you're putting them in a really tight place, and they must make profit, but they're doing the business so as well. So everybody has to kind of adjust along the circle.
I mean, if they're trying to keep their heads above water, then conversations around even just expansion of their operations have also taken a hit. So I'm looking at, for instance, the introduction of Momo Money, which still hasn't really taken off. And in that conversation, there is also the added layer of the silent, would I say, tensions between the telecommunications companies and the banks. Right. How do you see that playing out in the context of all of this?
I think what is clear is, I think what is clear is that Nigerian economy is different from some of the economies in the African continent. So what is happening for likes of countries that have M-Pesa, like likes of the Kenya, is that they thrive on mobile money to transact business, but in Nigeria the banks have beaten the telcos to it, and so the banks are the ones that are collecting the money because they've improved service delivery over time, and so the telcos see that they can also do that, and that's why they brought in the idea of the mobile money. But I mean, my money will first hit my account before it gets to the telco. And if I say although they might give me extra bonuses for trying to transact with their platform, but I mean, what it is what it actually is. The fight between the telcos and the banks, it's a battle is beyond just delivery of services. Some kind of play that you should not be talking about like very publicly, and so. The best thing for them to do is to actually work hand in hand, because one of the ways to achieve financial inclusion, which is actually very low in Nigeria, is by allowing both services to work. Not everybody uses an Android phone that will allow them to easily buy
internet.
Yeah. So the easiest way probably to do some of those services, use USSD to carry out more services. So this dispute that they continue to have, something has to actually stop at some point, because it just shows that they must work together to achieve that growth. They should agree on a plan on how to share the income, but then they have to work together to actually make sure that our services grow, because we need unity across board, especially at a time in Nigeria where we are not so comfortable about some of the macroeconomic conditions. Everybody's actually involved, so we actually need some more unity than some disparity of who gets what and who should get what.
And perhaps this is actually a good point to put a pause on the conversation. Mr. Olaoluwa, I want to say a big thank you for your time and the insight you shared with us today. We do appreciate it. My guest, Mr. Joseph Olaoluwa, is a senior reporter at Tech Cabal, joining me to discuss the dip in investment, foreign investment particularly, into the telecommunications sector, a source of concern across the board, particularly within the current economic landscape. And that's News Extra here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. I'm Nabila Usman. In just a bit, the news review comes your way. Stick around.
Every second and every minute, something new happens. The news brings.
3 people at a spot, and angry mob decided to bomb.
Everyone wants to share it, but not everyone wants to dig deep. Now that's where we come in. We bring you the news and go beyond with in-depth conversations and analysis with stakeholders.
I honestly think that the federal government on its own part has
if voters or more people want to be part of that decision-making process, they need to be part.
PDP is not a good measure of development anyways. We are not there. We need to counter the narrative of the fact that their vote does not count. If their vote does not count.
We bring you the story within the story, and that's what makes us tick. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, and we go beyond the news.
This is Now Breakfast.
Grab a seat, pour a cup of coffee, and join the conversation on Now Breakfast. Let's go beyond the news. Let's talk facts.
First and foremost, the government will never kowtow to the threat of any group to give it conditions.
Let's discuss your opinion.
The politicians in Nigeria don't understand the principle of politics.
The day's biggest news stories.
IPOB has been covered in themselves in glory. There is nothing special about them. It's like a witch cried at night and the child died following morning.
This is the news review on Now Breakfast.
Welcome back, Friday the 17th of November, and my name's Nabila Usman here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. And reintroducing, so that you know, a number of you will not come for me asking where she is. Sumbo Oladipo joins me on the line. Hi Sumbo, good morning.
Good morning, Nabila. How do you do?
I do. Because of you, over the last couple of days, I've had human beings coming for me, asking me, what have I done to Sumbo?
And what
Don't say it like that. Don't say it like that. It gives it implies that I've done something. I've not done anything. My middle name is Innocent.
I know.
Sumbo, it's good to have you on. I want to start off with matters of politics and governance just very quickly. It will lead us to the top of the hour. The appeal court has sacked another governor, right? This is, I think, the second so far in this cycle. This is the Zamfara State Governor, by the way, Governor Dauda Lawal. And in this case, it has ruled sort of in favor of the arguments that were made by the APC challenger Bello Matawalle, former governor, current minister of state. What we're seeing is a rerun, by the way. They didn't say, okay, well, we're declaring the APC candidate winner. So we'll still see a process sort of just get underway. My question is really around the number of people in the president's cabinet who have found themselves in this position, where they've been chasing an elective office while holding an appointive office. The Minister of State for Labour and Employment, Simon Lalong, has won his appeal for the Plateau Central Senatorial District seat, so he is Senator-elect but also minister. I don't know if you see this as a bit of a problem.
Nabila, your guess is as good as mine. It's quite confusing. And when I read this report this morning, my take was, for how long are we going to do this? Why can't we have an election straight and smooth and everything is good? Why must we always have, elections that are contested after it has been done, and then we keep going back and forth? It all falls down, it falls on the INEC that there's something that still needs to be done in terms of due diligence, in terms of ensuring that all the boxes are ticked before we go about announcing who the winner is, supposedly. So for me, it's not something that augurs well for the advancement of our political, space and for governance itself. And, talking about what you spoke about, people who are in elective offices and then they are contesting for yet another elective office. I think that, and then you see they are here, they want that, and all of that kind of nonsense. I think it's something that we need to take a critical look at and put in the necessary, conditions of how, if you are in an elective office, I don't know what's going to be done, but something just has to be put in place that will help us avoid all of this, confusion and embarrassment and then going back and forth. It's something that INEC should look at. It's something that the NAS should look at. But of course, again, when you talk about the NAS looking at a situation, it always becomes a bit difficult because most of the time they are the ones in the middle of the case. And you don't expect them to be true judges in cases where they are involved in, especially where their interest, is highly at stake. So,
I mean, perhaps this is a consequence of the president having such a cabinet that's so heavy on, heavily filled with politicians, people who actually held elective office. Because I think even the Minister of State for Employment, Nkirika Onyejocha, was a member of the House of Reps. She contested and lost out. And then, of course, you think about the ones who contested, they won. So the Minister of Interior, Olubumi Tunji-Ojo, the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, these are people who ran for office, succeeded, and suddenly our money and our effort sort of, in some contexts, is gone to waste because we had to conduct re-election in their constituencies.
Yet another. That's something that is extremely peculiar to this government. And I think, it was a question of trial and error. Or how do they put it? There's a way they put it in Yoruba that, let me not go into that. So
they didn't put all their eggs in one basket.
Thank you, that's the word. So if this doesn't work, maybe that will work. That appears to be the basis on which some of these things happen. So they went for elective, positions, and, some of them won and then were brought into the cabinet. And if you lost, then you could also be brought into the cabinet. Nabila, in all honesty, I don't know if there's something we can do about that, because you can't stop anybody from running for an office electively. And except we want to put in a law that says if you've run for an elective office and you won, then you are not eligible, for another assignment or for another office, maybe by the president. And then, so if you run for an election and you won, you stick to it. And I guess that's the only thing we can do in these circumstances. But is that feasible in our current reality? We think no.
Yeah, you have me tempted to sing this song from the politician's perspective. You say this, so you're asking them to give up the chance to secure another seat. And I just see them bursting out into Rick Astley's "Never Gonna Give You Up, Never Gonna Let You," in this case is "Go," because, this is for life. So we're tracking up to the top of the hour where we will take the headlines, but a few other things to keep in mind, which we'll come to on the other side of the news review. Front page of The Guardian speaks on service shutdown imminent as USSD debt hits 200 billion naira. How sachet alcoholic drinks breed alcoholism, thwart national development. We're also going to be speaking on insecurity and comments from the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, only here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, the station that takes you beyond the news.
Every second and every minute, something new happens. The news breaks.
People at a spot and angry mob decided to burn.
Everyone wants to share it, but not everyone wants to dig deep. Now that's where we come in. We bring you the news and go beyond with in-depth conversations and analysis with stakeholders.
I honestly think that the federal government on its own part has broken.
If voters or more people want to be part of that decision-making process, they need to be part of it.
This is not a good measure of development anyways. We are not there. We need to counter the narrative of the fact that our vote does not count. If your vote does not count.
We bring you the story within the story. And that's what makes us tick. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, and we go beyond the news.
Across Nigeria, Africa, and the world, this is Radio Now News.
In the headlines this morning, first in local news, collapsed Ebute Metta building already listed for demolition, says Lagos government. Appeal court sacks Zamfara governor, orders rerun. CUP scores INEC high in off-cycle polls, says Kogi results reflect observers' accounts. Amotekun arrests 55 suspected criminals in Ondo. In business and economy, inflation rate, monetary policies yielding desired results, says CBN. In showbiz and entertainment, England's Harry Kane says he would like to see Burna Boy live. On the foreign scene, Malawian president bans foreign travel for all government officials amidst economic crunch. And in sports, Lesotho hold Nigeria to 1-1 draw in World Cup qualifying opener. These are your 8 a.m. headlines here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. I'm Nabila Usman. Stick around, the news review continues shortly.
This is Radio Now News.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
This is Now Breakfast.
Grab a seat, pour a cup of coffee, and join the conversation on Now Breakfast. Let's go beyond the news. Let's talk facts.
First and foremost, the government will never kowtow to the threat of any group to give it conditions.
Let's discuss your opinion.
The politicians in Nigeria don't understand the principle of politics.
The day's biggest news stories.
IPOB has been covered in themselves in glory. There is nothing special about them. It's like a witch cried at night and the child died falling money.
This is the news review on Now Breakfast.
Welcome back. It's Friday the 17th of November and the news review here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. I'm Nabila Usman and my guest this morning is Sumbo Oladipo. Just before we went off for the headlines, we were discussing the appeal court sitting on the case, the electoral challenge to the governorship position in Zamfara State. The court has ordered a rerun in 3 local government areas, right? And once that occurs, we will get to determine our final, if you like, nail in the coffin regarding who has emerged as governor between Governor Dauda Lawal of the PDP or Bello Matoale of the APC. Now, as we turn elsewhere this morning, Sumbo, I want to play for a moment the clips from the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu. He was at the Nigerian Editors Conference, yes, in Akwa Ibom. It's still ongoing, but he was there yesterday and he was speaking on the state of security in Nigeria. Here's what he had to say.
When we got in, up till like 2 days ago, yes, the last record of we have, about almost 600 people, victims of kidnapping. Some of them were kept for 2 years, 3 years in detention, were released. Over 600, especially in the Northwest. Not long ago, last year around this time, armed gangsters, terrorists, were making life impossible, attack our trains, attack our prisons, attack our military formations. Now, you can drive at night from Kaduna to Abuja. Yes, it's happening. It has happened. We do not talk. We don't say a word. Yes, it is happening. But this is just one halfway into the journey of restoring order and security in our country.
NSA Nuhu Ribadu speaking. Sumbo, what are your thoughts? He says security has improved. They're just not lauding their successes.
That's very interesting. I would have thought that if you are able to make, such glowing achievements on an issue that has been, on the front burner in this country, is something that has been an issue of so much concern, I would have thought you would want to, basking it. I just listened to what he had to say now, and I'm asking myself, are there facts and figures, to show as evidence of what he has said? He made a statement that now you can drive Kaduna to Abuja in the night. Well, I don't know about that. I haven't read that report in the news, so I really don't know about the efficacy. Is it the efficacy or the authenticity of that statement? And Nabila, I'm not too sure that they are making the giant strides that is alluding to yet, because I think that the security situation is still very much around us. So I would want to see evidence of that statement, and I want to also see, the Fifth Republic, the Fourth Republic, as they call them, make allusions to that effect, or to kind of confirm what the minister said.
He does go on further to acknowledge that there's still a significant security issue. And unfortunately, I also can't provide I can't verify, or I can't back the statement he made about the Kaduna-Abuja road. I don't know anybody who's willing to make that trip at night. That's me personally. No, really. There are very few people who are willing to make that trip at night any longer. But I come back to, I want to take your attention to the House of Representatives and the Senate. Yesterday in both chambers, they had different debates around security. The House of Reps summoned the service chiefs. They were quite upset with how things have continued unabated in their opinion, right? The service chiefs sent representatives. They ended up kicking them out, told them, look, we understand that your principals are busy, but it is important they show up. After all, when it's time for confirmation, they will show up before the National Assembly. When it's time for budget, they will show up. But when we invite them, yes, it may sound, they've touched a nerve. But we come back to this issue, Sumba, and I'm wondering if we should perhaps change tactics in terms of accountability regarding security.
We should take tactics in terms of everything, Nabila. Nigeria is fond of rhetoric. Nigeria is fond of just making speeches, and all of that, while the real issues remain, unsolved. So for me, it's not about coming up to come and speak about it and saying, oh, we have made giant strides or whatever. The reality, Nabila, is that these are not things that can be done in secret. If the security situation improves, the entire nation would know it. We would feel it. We would see it. So you wouldn't really need anybody to come and be giving speeches, alluding to that fact. It's going to be very, very apparent for everyone to see. So for me, and look, if the House of Reps is now summoning the security chiefs, that tells you something. I mean, ideally, the House of Rep is supposed to be the representatives of the people. They're supposed to have, the position of the people at their fingertips. And if they are now calling for these people to come and speak to them on, the situation, then it tells me something. So, Nabila, let's face what we need to do. Yes, there should be a lot of accountability, transparency, but you know that Nigeria, we're not high on that, let alone on security issues. In this country, we have security votes that we do not have a duty to report on how it is spent. So everything about security is often shrouded in secrecy. And that should not be so. While I agree that some things might be extremely sensitive, and if you put them out there, they could scuttle your efforts. But at the same time, it's not that you now put a blanket cover, okay, on everything, and Nigerians don't even have an idea what's going on or how they are being secured. So for me, yes, you are right. We need a lot of transparency and accountability, but above all, we need a lot of positive actions. Let's do less of the talking.
It's interesting you talk about the lawmakers being representatives of the people, because when you look at the structure of our national security strategy, the lawmakers don't actually feature in terms of the structure. So just very quickly, the president is the chair of the National Security Council. You've got the vice president, the chief of defense staff, the ministers of interior and external, so foreign affairs, the NSA, then the IGP. This is the makeup of Nigeria's National Security Council. Lawmakers don't feature anywhere in it, except if the president decides to appoint. So that's the extra. The president can ask someone else to be a part of the council at his or her discretion. So, maybe this is part of what informs the body language of service chiefs, the successive service chiefs over the years. Now, Sumba, please come through.
No, go ahead.
Now, I was actually going to turn us to a different direction, but let me allow you pass your comments on this.
Okay, again, the way we run in Nigeria, when you feel that someone or an organization or institution does not really have, some degree of authority over you, people tend to, just throw that institution aside. But the reality is the representatives, like we said, are representatives of the people. Therefore, they kind of stand in the gap between the people and every other institution of government. So they receive, the challenges or whatever the need is from their people, from their constituencies, and they have that duty of presenting it to the institutions that matter. So I don't see why any organization or any institution in this country should begin to, work with a chip on their shoulders and feel that they are bigger than, another arm of governance. It's wrong, and and that nonsense should stop.
So we'll come to the phone lines in a bit. I want you to speak on this lead story on the front page of The Guardian. There's a kicker on top of it: from recreation to chronic diseases, poverty, how sachet alcoholic drinks breed alcoholism, thwart national development. In places where in the medical field, right, alcoholism is a disease. You can be addicted to it. You can be predisposed to it based on your genetics. Here in Nigeria, we seem to just take it willy-nilly. People go to the bar every other day, and we call it unwinding from the stress of Nigeria. We see public transport drivers, all these bus drivers, keke drivers, every 2 seconds they're whipping out a sachet of alcohol from their pocket and then tossing it into their mouth while they're driving. These guys who stay on the road to collect whatever it is that they're collecting from the bus drivers, same thing. I've seen one, he put his hand in his back pocket looking for something, and when he pulled it out, like 6-7 sachets, empty ones, just fell out of his pocket, right? So this brings me to the issue of whether we as a country understand how dangerous this thing is, because it's almost a culture.
It's beyond a culture. Unfortunately, the greatest market, where these sales are made in Nigeria, is in the motor parks and garages. Okay, it's open there. It's there for anyone to pick, like you are buying, a wrap of sweets. There are so many issues in Nigeria, Nabila, that we are not even facing, we are not even paying attention to. We don't think that they are important. We don't understand that all these things key into one another. It's in this country that I find out that you can buy just anything on the street. You can buy any drugs, you can buy, look at the way drugs have also become an issue. You know, you're talking about the marijuana, you're talking about, you know, maybe cocaine and all of this. You know, I'm not even sure cocaine is trending now. All the other, you know, drugs that the youths take. I wouldn't know either. But you have their refinols and all of this nonsense that they do now. Nobody pays attention to these things. Maybe because people don't realize that it has an effect on every other part, you know, of our life, of the fabric of this nation. When you know, NAFDAC, I think is one thing. I don't know, NAFDAC, the NDLEA, I think that they need to work together, and I think that the government itself needs to pay attention and to see that these things are off our streets. I know that at the time it was prohibited, you know, to sell all this sachet alcohol that you talk about in the garages and all of that. But the question is, how long did it last? Who is enforcing it? If we don't have enforcers, everyone is just going to have a field day doing what they like. It's a challenge. It's a dangerous one, because again, in better climes, you know, Nabila, even when you go to bars, there's an age, you know, specification.
I mean,
for you to get
we
in.
have that here too. It's just that
No, well, you have that. You have that on paper. But the question is, if you go to the garage or the motor park, for instance, who's checking who? Who puts in the check in place that the lady that has a bowl of all kinds of, and it's a mixture, there's a bowl, you know, the local herbs and all kinds of things, and then that one is there for the shocks. Who cares whether the young boy that is a minor who comes to buy, who wants to know whether he's, you know, is old enough or not to buy these things? You'll find a 9-year-old boy, you know, a 10-year-old girl going to these people and just buying this thing and drinking like they are drinking a pack of water.
And
so
you know,
these are the challenges.
I can't even say that's not happening, because I've seen that instance where a young boy goes, he was 11, went and claimed it was his uncle that sent him, nobody checked, and he was essentially drinking this thing, the sachets. Sumbo, let me open up the phone lines, right? There's still other conversations to be had this morning, but I'd like you to join the conversation. We're discussing alcoholism as a threat to development, to national cohesion, as an adopted culture. And I say this knowing fully well that, I mean, a few of us, we drink maybe socially. A few of us might have it as an actual issue and have not identified it just yet. Maybe you've identified it and you're working towards curbing it. Would love to really hear what your story is. 0913 5009, 953. Again, 0913 500953 and 0901 953. That's 0901 953. Send a WhatsApp message to 0809 6822 Hi, Jeff. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Mabila, and your analyst.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Good morning.
So, quick one. The first story is simple. When you don't lead by an example, what do you expect your own followers to do? So there are many times even the president has even rejected where how do I call it? Was it a judgment or will I say an authority was passed for some of our past presidents to do certain things, and they failed to do it. So when you say that the House of Assembly calls somebody and the person rejects it, the truth is that we will keep seeing this kind of a thing, because at the end of the day, your own leader is not adhering to laws or even simple policy. So let me leave that. The second thing I want to talk about is the alcohol stuff. Maybe like I say, if you see, you know Todd Mainland Bridge. I'm sure you know Todd Mainland Bridge.
I don't know. Please tell me more.
Okay. On top of on that road, you will see these young guys smoking Indian hemp. Police, I see them pass with a vehicle. They don't stop. They don't, as in, you see these guys, they smoke these things. Are you not supposed to just stop by, put those guys in your pickup? When I was in Kano State, let me tell you, Kano was so organized one time that if they see you in a bar in the morning, ask anybody who grew up in Kano, you will see police, they are going to joints in the morning. Once they catch you, you will will go to the station and they ask you, why are you drinking this hour of the day? You're expected to start drinking by 5. Ask anybody who stays in Kano some years back that even when we want to drink, even let's say, like, let me just say, we want to drink as younger men those days. You go into that bar, you are hiding. You know that if you are caught. You see, we know what to do in this country, and our government, we are just talking. We are just good in talking. All the things you are saying, I've even seen a police officer, even what they call those guys, the road safety man, in the morning taking that shekpe from that woman who sells that drum. Yes, I have seen it. I'm telling you at the Ejibo. In the morning, you see them, they were taking it.
All right.
So what do you expect? So what I'm saying is that all these things, it's simple to do. If, for example, they can even start with the drivers, for example, because these drivers, you carry people's lives are in your hands. If governments are serious, they can even go and buy machines at each park, simple machine, and say every driver must be checked. And if we notice there's anything called alcohol, because if someone take alcohol and take tom-tom or take something, you may not know. So there are certain things they do it, and I know there are countries who apply these things. So let's just take action and stop talking. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. We've got Mary on the line. We'll come back to Jeff's thoughts. Hi, Mary. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. You've got the floor.
Okay, so first I want to ask, who are these Nigerians that Nigerians are always complaining about? It's because every time we say these things, we say them and they, but we have those problems internally, within our own families, within our own little spaces. And I think that till we stop on looking and pretending that these problems are external to us, we really cannot solve this problem. This is specifically referring to the conversation on alcohol and drugs. Because for a classic example is in Europe, if you go to a store to buy alcohol off the shelf, you must, they don't care how you look, you have to show them some form of identification. I've gone to buy alcohol before, and trust me, I look my age. And before I knew what was happening, the teller ran over to me and was like, oh, I have to still show them some form of identification. But in Nigeria, those things are uncontrolled. That's the problem. They are uncontrolled. They are everywhere. And exactly what you said, that this habit that you have elderly people sending children to buy cigarettes, to buy alcohol, how then do you correct this child? Like, for me, it's just a compounding problem that we have to stop pretending. We have to start having the true conversations. We cannot pray these things away. We need to accept that these problems exist and that they exist within our own immediate environment, and that we also contribute to it, even as much as government needs to do their part in controlling. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate your contribution. Certainly a question there. How do we look at ourselves, not at the other Nigerian, but at yourself as a Nigerian? And this is where somebody will come and tell me that they're not Nigerian. Sorry for you. As long as you're calling me on +234, we're going to have a conversation. We've got John on the line. Hi, John. Good morning.
Good morning, Nabila. Good morning, Shumbo. Hi, long time.
Good morning. John, well, anyway, I know my village people sent you, but it will not work.
Yes, and they sent me to do the job very well.
All right, no problem. John, you've got the floor.
Nigerians have 3 stress relievers: the Premier League, alcohol, and sex.
Did you say the Premier League?
Yes.
Do you mean the football clubs?
Sorry?
Do you mean the football clubs?
The Premier League as a
what team do you support, John?
as a means by which they release
Okay,
their
you
stress.
don't want to talk about like Man U or Arsenal, so that we'll not start talking about whether they're giving you a heart
No,
attack.
I'm really more into motorsports and other things. So I'm just saying that this is what Nigerians use as their stress release. Premier League, alcohol and sex. We are 220 something million people. How do you think we got here?
My middle name is Innocent. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. But the point I'm trying to make is this. Even during the Great Depression in the U.S. in the early 19th century, alcohol was banned. Why? Because the people went to alcohol as a means of relieving their stress or their burdens, and the government saw that if they allowed it to continue, they would have an entire population of alcoholics. The problem we have in this country is that the problems that we have are not looked on by our government. Why? Because our government is busy gallivanting about the whole world, doing all kinds of things that have no import or any impact on the people themselves. This country alone, NDLEA, you have NAFDAC, you have Ministry of Health, you have all kinds of NGOs, and there is not a single blueprint right now on the reduction of alcoholism, which is not a problem that we are looking. It's already entrenched in our psyche, in our culture, and it has already entered another generation. So, as long as the Nigerian government does not think that this is a clear and present danger, you and I are just throwing sound bites.
All right.
Because the militarization of alcohol is to enable the poor have access to it. Because growing up as a child, if you want to drink whiskey, it's a big bottle that you have to buy. Now they militarized it.
Yeah.
That even the poorest of the poor can forgo food and buy alcohol.
We've got
drugs.
to leave it here. Let me take George's point. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. George, apologies for keeping you waiting. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I think good morning.
Morning. Welcome. Please go ahead.
For keeping me waiting, you have to say something for my email box. So.
Don't worry. Refresh your email.
Today is Friday.
Refresh. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, Nabella, you see this issue of alcohol. We are talking about this loan. In fact, it's out of hand. I don't know how we are going to do it. Young boys, young girls, drinking, drugging. That's why if you move around the whole country, if you move around Nigeria, you see young boys, madness everywhere, young girls, madness everywhere. So I don't know how we get to this level. I don't know where we get to this level. Security agencies, in fact, government need to do something. Because as the last caller said, I remember there was a time America banned alcohol. There was a time they banned it. So I don't know whether government can ban it. Because it's getting out of hand. Drug everywhere. Young boys, young girls. So the government stand up and do something about it. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you, George. I appreciate your contribution. 0913 5000 953. We're going to come to John's point on accessibility and cost, right? And George speaks on, he referenced John's point about, phasing out alcohol. I'm going to touch very quickly on what some European countries have been doing with regards to cigarettes. Actually, there's a system that they've adopted there. 0913 5000 953. This is the news review on Now Breakfast. Hi, Bassi. Good morning.
Good morning, my sister.
Welcome. Please go ahead.
You talk about alcohol. You see, it is a part of Nigerian system. If government cannot do something about it, you will have a lot of brain drain because.
Oh dear, Bassi. That tone tells me that the line dropped. Not certain why. I hope you can call back, right? The phone lines are still open. But also I implore you to use our digital platform. Send us a message on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is 0809 682 2595. Again, that is 0809 682 2595. I know that one of the things that has picked up across young people in Nigeria recently is laughing gas. people have been consuming that, and it's become a bit of a problem. And it's not just in Nigeria, by the way. In the UK, it's the same thing, but they've now banned it as a substance that can easily be bought by people on the streets. Hi, Ede. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Ede, welcome. Please go ahead.
I want to greet my madam. You know,
greet your madam.
Accusing you, where do you pursue her go now?
Simbo, this is of you to come to my rescue.
You want to kill me because I drink sachet hot with the 50 naira and the 100 naira.
The issue is not whether you drink it; it's how often you drink it.
I drink them now. Not
how often?
When we can drink it.
How many? How many sachets?
Plenty now. Not the thing when we can drink it. They give a ministerial post that I have. But in the inside, yeah, go to drink and go to go. We're gonna no close them more.
Oh, God.
Now don't come another matter now.
Eda, you shouldn't be saying this on radio.
Okay, sorry. I don't talk. But now talk say na 40 years age drink you drunk.
I mean, I understand the irony in your comment, Ede, but perhaps you want to get to the more constructive part of it.
Oh, okay.
You don't have any advice to give?
Which advice? If I give them, can they hear? Come to my sleep here and see what they happen. They come drug like they are hooking akara. Yeah. Drug in the night. You can't sleep. I mean, this is it. We have problem. We have problem. Drug in the night, all the small boys. Do you know that secondary school children now? If you see why I had my son, I police my son like any other thing. Before they close it by 4 o'clock, somebody don't wait for their carry them. No, if you move at the gate, I wrong gate, where do you go? Because this thing is, you know, the bad thing is spread. It's like a wind fire, you know, and the people doesn't let good thing easily. It is all the kind of a thing. Tell me. So we have a fundamental problem. We never want to solve it. I used to tell you that we are traveling on the
4 lanes. It has come that yes. Thank you, Ede. I appreciate
it.
Remain
now. Make they pray. Make it remain only that where would they go now?
Thank you, Ede. When you called on Tuesday, it was 4 lanes. Now it has come down to 2. Taufik, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, please.
Please go ahead.
It's always a pleasure. You know, this alcohol of a thing. I listened to the NDLEA. I think they are doing a lot of work. And
they are with regards to drugs, actually, because alcohol is not an illegal substance in our country.
In fact, I'm going there. I listen to. In fact, I've been listening to most of their programs on drugs and the like. You know, here I come to understand that there are a lot of legislation work that needs to be done, right? Before the likes of all those sachets and the likes can actually be caught. So where it appears to me that our legislatures need to do a lot in this aspect. I also understand that quite a number of proposals has been sent to the House. Maybe they are yet to get results. You know, and that also calls to attention what our legislators give priority to. You know, be that as it may, from our own, as a community, as a people, as a country, I think we need to do a lot in discouraging alcoholism in its entirety. For me, I find it so amazing that hardly do you have any ceremony, naming ceremony, marriage ceremony, mentioning that would not be graced with alcoholism of all sorts. I don't know if you agree with me on this.
I hear you. You're not wrong.
Yes. So that's also part of the way the society itself encourages it. I was baffled one day when I saw an HM, you know, with You know, I was so surprised that if an HM could be taking this, that is an headmaster of a school, a woman for that matter, you know, so they're quite, you know, of course you say that, well, if you take it, not the type that will make you drunk and the like. But I feel, I don't know, in our society, there is a way we encourage the youth, you know, for the youth, for the teenagers, whatever they see, they believe is good. And they want to practice what they see the elders, the adults doing. I wouldn't know to what extent we can actually do that in our society. For example, when you go to the market, you find some of these, what do they call it, all in the name of advertisement. They come with some ladies, you know, dancing on the stage in such promiscuous, you know, whereas there are school children passing by. You understand? I don't know if you really pick what I'm saying. You know, for what will inform that student that, oh, this is the stopping point for me?
I understand.
You understand? So there is a way our society also encourages all of this. And for teenagers that are just growing, 18, 17, if you give them the length of 20%, trust me, they will times 5 or 4.
All right.
So our society itself, we need to find a way of covering it. You know, may God help us until we get to the level where our legislation will do a lot more in covering it, such smaller sachets and the like. When I was about 5 years ago, about 5 years ago, there were those women that were selling agbo in the community. They limited to themselves to that agbo. But today, you see them, they are not just selling agbo, you know, they are also selling all of those sachets. In fact, it is so popular like pure water.
All right, Taufik, let's leave it here. Thank you. And I do appreciate how expansive your contribution was, right? It takes us to the conversation around accessibility and the cost, which John mentioned. It's just easy to get it. Regina on WhatsApp says, Dear Nabila, if alcohol is banned, what will our gods drink? Even our gods drink schnapps. There's a troublemaker here. There's another troublemaker on WhatsApp. This is AB Bozimo. He says the gentleman from whose pocket many sachet wraps fell out of may have merely been a collector of empty wraps and not a drinker. Palm wine drinkard. I think that's the name. Look, Sumbo, as we wrap up this conversation around how easily accessible alcohol is, how we are, the taste in terms of addictions has now branched into laughing gas, and perhaps borrowing a leaf from the book, the pages of European countries that have they've passed laws. So, for instance, if you're born after 2005, you will no longer be allowed to purchase cigarettes. That way, they are increasingly reducing the pool of people because, you know, people are dying out. Right. So by the time you hit 2005, you will have generations within these countries that are no longer addicted to this substance because it's been banned. So I'll just get your final thoughts on this as we wrap up.
The question with that, Nabila, is with Nigeria, it's usually about enforcement. It's not necessarily about the legislation. You can put the legislation there, but you will always find, you know, a backroom way or backdoor way of accessing, you know, the legal. So for me, what we need to concentrate more upon is the enforcement, to be sure that once we put this legislation in place, agencies, persons, institutions will work tirelessly to ensure that there's compliance. You know, that's it. But again, unfortunately for us, for me, my take on this, Nabila, is that Nigerian, rulers are too preoccupied by politics and getting their hands on positions, you know, for them to look in this direction or even consider this a challenge to be tackled. That majorly is the problem. But the advice or the counsel would be for every one of us in our own little spaces to do what we can. You know, in terms of sensitization, especially the youths and all of that, whatever you can in your own little space, in your own sphere of influence, please do. Because we are finding out over and over again that we really can't depend on government to put these things in order.
Sumbo, thank you so much for joining me on the conversation. I appreciate your time. And I will say again, please, my middle name is Innocent, right? So that if you don't hear from Sumbo next week, Friday, you will not come for me. It's time to ask her where she's going to. Sumbo, I wish you the best of the day. And to each of you who contributed to today's conversation, look, today's conversation, especially being a critical social issue, right? It's something that we do together as a community. Forget the jokes that were made. It is a serious problem. And if you do drink alcohol and you drink it within levels that are above what is normally acceptable, it's not a problem to look for help, right? And here on Radio Now, we'll try to do that for you, give you some of the places that help with addiction to alcohol in particular. And that's the conversation on the news review here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. My name's Nabila Usman. It's been a pleasure to hear from you. Stick around. The latest in the business world comes with Aramide Folorunsho in On Business Now.
Every second and every minute, something new happens. The news breaks.
People at a spot and angry mob decided to bomb.
Everyone wants to share it, but not everyone wants to dig deep. Now that's where we come in. We bring you the news and go beyond with in-depth conversations and analysis with stakeholders.
I honestly think that the federal government on its own part has broken.
If voters or more people want to be part of that decision-making process, they need to be part
GDP is not a good measure of development anyways. We are not there yet. We need to counter the narrative of the fact that their vote does not count. If their vote does not count.
We bring you the story within the story. And that's what makes us tick. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. And we go beyond the news. Connect with us now via our social media channels. Facebook.com/Radio Now 953FM.
We're on Twitter too. Connect with us there and get involved.
At Radio Now 953FM. 953FM. Like what we do? Share it on your socials and tell everyone.
Want to see some more of us? Head over and meet us on Instagram
at Radio Now 953FM. Get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
From the Central Business District of Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, this is 95.3 Business Now.
It's another Thank God Friday, the 17th of November. A very warm welcome to the program. I am Aramide Folorunsho, and these are your business quick takes. NGX Regulation Limited is today hosting its inaugural workshop to launch its groundbreaking initiative, Equip Her, dedicated to empowering women and driving inclusive growth within Nigeria's equity market. Now, the Equip Her initiative addresses various aspects of women's financial inclusion, aligning with Nigeria's National Financial Inclusion Strategy, the Securities and Exchange Commission's Capital Market Master Plan, and various United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The United States Department of Agriculture's Economic Research Service has published a new report which says Nigeria will import 2.1 million metric tons of rice in 2024, making it among the world's largest buyer of the staple. Import forecasts for Nigeria were raised due to stronger than expected demand caused by both high domestic rice prices and quality concerns. The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele, has revealed that the federal government will soon send an emergency economic intervention bill for consideration and passage to the National Assembly. Speaking at the MTN Capital Market Day in Abuja, Oyedele highlighted the emergency economic intervention bill's potential to amend various laws, including those allowing tax payments in dollars. The bill will also affect taxes like petroleum profit tax and company income tax for foreign organizations. The Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Adegboyega Oyetola, says that the federal government is considering setting up a national shipping line through a strategic public-private partnership arrangement. This move, according to him, is aimed at capturing a substantial share of the estimated $10 billion annual ship charter market within the country. The African Export-Import Bank and Oando PLC, Nigeria's leading indigenous energy solutions provider, have signed an $800 million loan document to facilitate the company's acquisition of 100% of the shares of the Nigerian Ajib Oil Company. Back in September, Oando PLC announced it had reached an agreement with Italian multinational energy company Eni, with operations in 62 countries including Nigeria, for the acquisition of 100% of the shares of the Nigerian Ajib Oil Company. Well, the Association of Issuing Houses of Nigeria has disclosed that private companies and the government raised 3.44 trillion naira through corporate bonds and commercial paper issuance in 333 deals in 2 years. AIHN President Ike Chioke disclosed that the group's total asset stood at 116.14 million naira in 2022, which is higher than 361.05 million naira recorded in 2021 financial year. Well, coming up after the break, let's take a look at the Association of Issuing Houses of Nigeria's Investment Banking Awards held on Tuesday. Join us again, everyone.
This is 95.3 Business Now.
We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos.
Connect with us now via our social media channels. Facebook.com/RadioNow953FM.
We're on Twitter too. Connect with us there and get involved.
At Radio Now 953FM. 953FM. Like what we do? Share it on your socials and tell everyone.
Want to see some more of us? Head over and meet us on Instagram
at Radio Now 953FM. Get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
This is 95.3 Business Now.
Welcome back to Business Now. The Association of Issuing Houses of Nigeria, AIHN, on Tuesday hosted an investment awards dinner to recognize the meritorious contributions of its members as well as key players in the development and growth of the industry in the last year, 2022. So I had a chat with Ike Chioke, the outgoing president of the association, on his achievements while in office. Take a listen.
Okay, there have been a handful. But obviously, over the period, I think that what I can hold the DRS is we held a committee between the Association of Issuing Houses of Nigeria and the SEC. This was the joint committee we started in 2001. And one of the things we focused on was how to bring transactions to the market more quickly. It typically used to take about 3 months from start to finish to start a bond deal and get the SEC approval before you can then start marketing to investors. We've been able to bring that down to as little as 4 weeks if the issuing houses can bring all the information they need on time. And that's a big change because, as you know, the markets are very sensitive, and if today there's an opportunity where interest rates are low, then it's easier for companies to come quickly to the market and raise money. Unfortunately, at the present moment, interest rates seem to be rising. So that opportunity doesn't exist, but it still means that transactions are able to come to market more quickly. One other issue we focused on was being able to work with the SEC to have cost-reflective fees applied to transactions. The SEC has for too long tried to constrain the fees that investment banking firms are charging, but we've argued that actually fees should be based on a willing buyer, willing seller position, and that the core of the transactions in the industry should be done by the medium-sized companies raising about 5 to 10 billion naira, and the fees should not be compressed to a level where the income for investment banks are not significant. If we make that more flexible, then we can see more transactions come into the system, and that's one area that the new president is going to continue to dialogue and work with the SEC to get them to see that that is the best way for the market to grow.
All right. Also, I'd like you to talk to me about the contribution of investment banking to the national conversation on infrastructure, financing, and others.
That's a very critical point, and thank you for raising that up. As you know, Nigeria needs to spend the equivalent of $100 billion every year for the next 10 years, at least, to make any significant impact in infrastructure development. But at the moment, government revenues are clearly challenged. You saw, if you look at the statistics, the government is spending almost 100% of its revenue in servicing the existing debt. So they don't have any additional income to bring to the table in terms of infrastructure development unless they borrow, creating more debt issues. So the best opportunity is for the investment banking industry, which the association represents, to work with government players, with subnationals like Lagos State and Enugu State who are focused, and help them raise the appropriate level of financing required to develop this country. And that's already beginning to show. Lagos State as an issue has raised over 2 trillion naira in the last 2 decades. I believe there are other states that have come to market recently, but that opportunity remains a viable one, and that is one aspect that the Association of Issuing Houses of Nigeria is well positioned to intermediate and, be able to be the intermediator between investors that have funds like the pension industry. We have 16 trillion naira of investable funds sitting there, and projects that the states or the federal government may need to have funded. And our role is to make sure that those are viable projects that have the capacity to repay the funds to the owners of the funds with some profit.
This is 95.3 Business Now.
That was Ike Chioke, the outgoing president of the Association of Issuing Houses of Nigeria. So let's give you a snapshot of our Thursday's trading day. We'll start with the equities market here in Nigeria, which closed marginally higher as bargain hunting in Nigerian breweries that saw a 5.3% positive, and MTN Nigeria 0.2%. All of these spurred a 2 basis point increase in the NGX all share index, closing at 71,025.16 points. As a result, we also saw the month to date and the year to date returns printed 2.6% and 38.6% respectively. Well, looking across frontier African market, the Egyptian index was better, closing 2.05% yesterday. The Kenya Burst reversed the previous day's gain and lost a 0.07% on Thursday. Here in West Africa, the regional exchange in Abidjan closed 0.05% positive. The Ghana stock market remained flattish. However, in Southern Africa, the Zimbabwe stock market reported an increase of 0.57%, while the JSE, that's in South Africa, fell sharply 1.42% yesterday. Let's come back on Broad Street now. Overnight lending rate among commercial banks in Nigeria saw an increase of it contracted by 8 basis points to 22.9% in the absence of any significant inflows into the system. Well, the NTB secondary market traded with mixed sentiments, although with a bullish undertone. The average yield paired by 1 basis point to 13.3%. And proceedings in the FGM bond secondary market were quiet. Average yield closed flat at 15.9%. Well, a quick look at foreign exchange now. The Naira depreciated by 2.6% to 841 Naira 14 kobo against the US dollar at the Nigerian autonomous foreign exchange market as monitored via the FMDQ Securities Exchange. Let's get to oil prices now, which were on track for the 4th straight week of decline as they remained little change in early Asian trade after slipping about 5% to a 4-month low on Thursday. That's on worries over global demand. Brent futures were up 10 cents or 0.1% to $77.52 a barrel, and the US West Texas Intermediate crude was nearly flat at $72.95. So both indices have lost around a sixth of their value over the last 4 weeks. That's roughly a month now. OPEC and the International Energy Agency have been they've both predicted supply tightness in the 4th quarter, but some key economic data from around the world this week showed demand was bleaker than forecast. Now, the oil prices decline this week was mainly triggered by a steep rise in U.S. crude inventories and production sustaining at record levels, which analysts say triggered concerns of weak demand in the world's largest oil consumer amid high output. Now, we've also got JP Morgan Commodities Research saying today that its global oil demand tracker showed demand average 101.6 million barrels a day in the first half of November, running 200,000 barrels a day lower than its projection for the month. And analysts also said that the recent drop in prices is also likely to make Saudi Arabia extend oil output cuts into the year 2024. Well, that's the package on Business Now this Friday, the 17th of November. Thank you so much for listening. I am Aramide Folorunsho. Do join us again bright and early on Monday. It's bye for now.
This is 95.3 Business Now.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.